Assalamualaikum dear scholars, and welcome to part 2 of chapter Cross-Cultural Variations in the Consumer Behavior. In the previous lecture we defined the concept of culture, and we described the core values that have differences across culture and influences the consumer behavior. Now we are going to understand the cross-cultural variation in non-verbal communication. We are going to summarize the key aspects of the global youth culture and understand the role of global demographics in consumer behavior. Before we discuss cultural variations in non-verbal communication, we should understand that verbal communication system or languages are obviously different from one foreign culture to another. In case even if languages are same, for example like in USA, Britain or Australia, which are English speaking countries, there may be differences in pronunciation, there may be differences in how the slangs are used or the meaning of the word that is used. So that can be one of the barriers. Similarly, translation from one language to another can also create problem for marketing communication at a global level. For instance, as you can see examples here, in Japan, a global soft drink company wanted to introduce a product with the attributes of creaminess. However, research showed that there was no corresponding word in Japan for this attribute. So the company had to find something comparable, and the word that they found actually meant like milk feel. So it was not comparable to creaminess. Similarly, Ziploc, when they introduced their storage bags in Brazil, where Portuguese is the language, they had to use extensive advertising to actually create a new word called zipper, meaning to zip, because there was no such term in the Portuguese language. So similarly, as you can see that Barnef Airlines introduces new leather first class seats in Mexico. The theme was flying leather, which actually literally translated to fly naked. So as we understand that communication factors in verbal language can cause problems at multiple levels, including humor, style and peace. But although if the companies are very careful, they can keep track of their system. On the other hand, non-verbal communications, which are actually the meanings that are attached to certain things or certain events or some certain actions in a particular culture, they create problems, because if the marketers fail to recognize how the non-verbal communication system of a particular culture works, they may fail in their advertisement, they may fail in their business dealings. And this topic is actually can be expanded to overall global business, as well as we are discussing in the context of marketing or advertisement to understand the consumer in certain countries. We can also study this topic in context of the business dealings or international business context. So these are the factors which influence non-verbal communication, like time, space, the symbol, friendship, agreements, things, etiquettes. These factors we will discuss one by one. An important part of non-verbal communication is time. The meaning of time varies between cultures. The first major way it varies is the time perspective, that is the culture's overall orientation towards the time. First is the monochronic culture and second is the polychronic culture. In monochronic cultures, time is seen almost as a physical object. We can schedule it, we can waste it, we can lose it. So a person who does one thing at a time have a strong orientation towards the present and a short-term future. This is called a monochronic time culture. Most of the American countries, North American countries are lies in this monochronic time culture. On the other hand, you can see that Asians, Indians and Latin Americans tend to see time as less discrete, and they do not schedule it. So they may be simultaneously involved in many activities and it seems natural. So people and relationship take priorities over the time schedules that are given, on the meeting schedules that are given, and such cultures have an orientation towards the present and the past. So this is known as a polychronic time perspective. So if you are thinking about marketing strategies or marketing activities within a monochronic and polychronic culture, so it may be different. For example, personal sellings or negotiations that occurs in a monochronic cultures, they would be have more orientation towards some contests or some sales deadlines that are offered as compared to polychronic cultures. Similarly, the concept of convenience stores or fast food chains to save the time may not be as effective in a polychronic culture. Maybe they have to be represented in some other ways, something that is more have a fancy food or a modern or liberated food can be advertised, fast food restaurants in that way in a polychronic culture as compared to a time saving aspects. Although it is worth noting that even if many cultures like America's USA is monochronic, due to the impact of digital and technology, younger consumers are becoming more polychronic, and this is evident from the social media or the short videos. They cannot concentrate on one thing at one time. Their span of attention is less than 20 seconds, even it is as less as 8 seconds. And sometimes they're on their smartphones, they're also watching TV, they're also on computers, they're also doing some other activity. So marketers have to take this in account, that majority of cultures are now turning into polychronic cultures. The other aspect is the meaning in the use of time. So how different cultures actually perceive their time. They have different meanings when it comes to time. For instance, some cultures like America, promptness or quick decision is very important, whereas the Japanese negotiators, they want to take their time. Similarly, in the Middle East, they want to take their time to come to a decision. They want to discuss, and they are not in a hurry to for the promptness. So when promptness is considered very important in America or in Japan, in countries like Middle East, promptness is not that important. Similarly, what it mean by time, I'm coming after 10 minutes or I'm coming after half an hour, this also varies by culture to culture. So in some cultures, if you are given a specific time for the meeting, you are expected to arrive on time. That the example of European countries, or the example of Japan, or example of United States. Whereas in majority of Asian countries, time is not the time that is given or the time that is basically agreed upon. Half an hour is not a big issue. They may be late, and that is a norm in those countries. Space has also an important meaning in the non-verbal communication. And one aspect, a space like an office space, in many countries, a bigger office is actually an indication of a rank or prestige. So CEOs or presidents have a larger office, and then as you go down the hierarchy, the office size are decreased. The second important aspect is the personal space, that how near you stand one person and how comfortable you are standing in a various situations some person. For example, in Asian countries, you are very comfortable standing near to people, or you're very comfortable hugging people in some countries, and even in some countries, if the family members are there, you are more closer. If they are unfamiliar people, then you want some space. In countries like United States, for a business communication, 3 to 5 feet is actually acceptable. And if a very personal business communication, then you can be as close as 18 inch to 3 feet. Whereas in Latin American countries or in Middle Eastern countries, you tend to be very close while speaking to each other, and a person who coming from America to these countries may feel very uncomfortable. Symbols also hold a very important position when it comes to non-verbal communication. The way you are using your hand gesture, as given in this example, it may tell about that in one country a hand gesture may feel very good or okay, well in another country it may be very insulting or very offensive. So if a company is failing to recognize the meaning assigned to a symbol, it can cause some serious problem. For example, a company had to change its thumbs up ad in Russia and Poland, because that ad, the thumbs was showing the palm of the hand, which was an offensive. So they simply changed it showing the back of the hand. So this table actually demonstrate the meaning of various numbers, colors and other symbols. As you can also know, for example, pink color is generally for female in USA, and blue is for male. There are some other countries like Holland, this may be different. So what is the meaning of white? Like in Far Eastern countries, in Middle Eastern countries, white is commonly wear, but whereas in some countries like India, white actually symbolizes death. On the other hand, black is the color normally used in the Christian dominated countries. What is the meaning of purple? What is the meaning of blue in some countries? Like it is for femininity in Holland, although blue is mostly used for boys in USA or in Sweden. Similarly, red color is considered unlucky or negative in Chad, Nigeria, Germany, whereas in Denmark, Romania, Argentina, even in China, it is very positive colors. As you can see that in many buildings in Singapore, the number 13 is missing because it is considered unlucky. Similarly, there's a lot of rumors around 7. It is considered unlucky in Ghana, Kenya, Singapore as well, and whereas it is considered lucky in many countries. On the other hand, there some animals are also considered, like owl is for wisdom in USA and bad luck in India. So these symbols are actually important to understand for the marketers in the context of how they are designing the advertisements, how they are designing the market communications. Are they associated their product with some kind of a color that is unacceptable in some culture, so that thing can be very important, or it can be a bridge between the failure and success. On the other hand, there are some symbols like the Kellogg's tiger is effectively used in the multiple cultures around the world, and it is equally acceptable around many cultures. The concept of relationship, how you are making friends, how you are relating to the people around you, specifically when you are doing business, also hold very great importance in understanding the consumer behavior. Some cultures are very good at making new friends, and some cultures are also very good at dropping their friends. It's easy for them to move away from the friends. That is something that you can portray in your popular media or popular advertisements, because these people in these cultures are quickly moving from one place to another, and because of this mobility, they do not have long-term relationships. On the other hand, there are some cultures specifically found in Asia and Latin America. You may find long-term relationships to be very important, long-term friendships to be very important. These friendships are formed slowly and they have a long-lasting influence. So that is something that you can portray in the ads. In USA, you may find that things like friendship and businesses are world apart, whereas in many cultures, friendship and business are deeply intertwined, because in those cultures, as you can see, that written word is actually is just a legality. People are actually caring about emotions of other people, caring about their personal relationships. So that is more important, especially in countries like in Asian countries, specifically in Latin American countries. This is an important concept. Guanxi or the Chinese relationship is something that is very peculiar about Chinese, and it's something that Westerns are actually trying to understand how these relationships work, because they are actually very much ingrained within their business relationships as well. So in this Chinese relationship, there is a reciprocal relationship, because it is a long-term ongoing reciprocal exchange with a definite end. Without a definite end, favors are actually noted down. Individuals keep track of favors. These are transferable connections, because relationship extend beyond two parties and can be transferred within a long social network. So as you can see, that businesses and friendships are actually mingled among each other. They are overlapping with each other. So it's individual based because it is built between individuals rather than organization. The status, you can extend relationship with seniors which extend to their subordinates, but it's not the other way around. Their seniors not going to be with your subordinates. And social before business. So personal relationships come before the business dealings. So this is how the foreigner markets are actually understanding the Chinese relationship while doing the businesses with them. And this can be, as we have already discussed, not only in advertisement, in marketing campaigns. This extends to the whole business relationships or the international business scenario. Agreements are also a part of a relationship. How agreements are actually formed, because in countries like USA, they extensively rely on a legal system and legal bindings or written down agreements, wherein in many countries that you may have experienced, basically you can see in Asian countries, these systems are not well developed. The agreements are based upon relationships, friendships, kinships, word of mouth, or maybe there may be a third party that is vouching for you, but maybe it's not written down. So agreements are honored based upon relationship in some countries, and agreements are honored based upon the legal system in other countries. Things hold a very important place when it comes to non-verbal communication, especially when it comes to understanding why a brand is being sold in other country, may not sell in some other country, or maybe sell more positively in some other country, because the cultural meaning of things leads to a purchase pattern that one would not otherwise be able to predict. These different meanings are very important for the marketers to understand. For instance, let me give you an example. If you are giving, if you are dealing with a Chinese business customer, and you want to give them some gift along with your product, so that what should be a common gift? So in China, the clock may not be that inappropriate, because the word clock is similar to the word for funeral, so which it makes clock a very inappropriate gift. So these things are actually important when it comes to business dealings, exchanging gifts, or even exchanging some promotional items along with the customers. Then when it comes to etiquettes, that is an accepted way of behaving in a social situation. You may be understanding that if we are making some kind of an advertisement and we are showing some people that eating food over there, so in some cultures if food is eaten with a fork or a knife. Some cultures they are using their hands to eat their food, and in other cultures, in China, they are using chopsticks to eat. So if you consider this, or in some countries there are some etiquettes like how to sit there, how to talk, how much a loud voice is a very loud voice. You may see in some Asian cultures, in Middle Eastern cultures, you would see in African cultures, you would see that people, when they are talking to each other, it seems like they're very loud. Whereas in West, this may seem to a disagreement, or this may seem something like anger or emotional distress. Whereas etiquettes, when you're talking about etiquettes, there may be some polite ways to talk in some cultures. Like some people do not say no, some cultures do not say no directly. They indirectly say that it may be very difficult for us, or we will think about it and we will try to understand your request, something like that. Whereas in some cultures they're very direct and they just would say no or yes, while we are they are replying to you. So these etiquettes are actually differ from one culture to another culture. Now let's discuss about another topic. What is a global youth culture that is evolving around the world? There is an increasing awareness among the marketers that global consumers or global cultures are emerging. These are those who have a shared set of consumption related symbols with common meanings and desirability among their members. And one such proposed global culture is a global youth cultures who view themselves as knowledgeable, modern, cosmopolitan, lives in cities. They share many values and consumption related behaviors with similar individuals all across the globe, not in some area, all across the globe. Such cultures are actually being created by mass media, by travel, by the same type of work, multinational companies, education, and they have their product categories are all quite overlapping, like cell phones, internet, like brands, because these brands have actually symbolically related themselves to the local culture as well as the global culture. Now they are actually trying their best to homogenize the cultures all across the world. For example, focusing on women who are career oriented, because all these career oriented women would be using some products, like they would be using the makeup products that are very quick, that can be quickly applied, like they can be using shampoos that are very easy and time saving for their hair, something like that. So all across the world they would be advertising their products in a similar manner. As we are talking about a global youth culture, we can see it's a two-way street that is going, like cultures are accepting each other's. Americans are learning Bollywood dance steps at their local health clubs, and there may be something that is from, as we have already discussed, in Korean K-pop is all getting popular across the world. And as you can look at this table, now there are similarities and convergence of lifestyle value and purchases that this global youth is making, and it is actually very compelling for the companies because they are increasing the segment size. Given that this survey that is across 6 countries that found that now there is an 86% similarity between the products and the way they are actually using these products, and these similarities, as you can see, the top 3 categories are quite overlapping over, like the transportation over here, food over here, clothing over here. So there you can find a lot of similarity among different countries. A question that is very logical that may arise in your mind is that what is causing this convergence? Obviously, technology is at the hub of this change. The largest single influence in the whole world, the internet and the mobile devices. And similarly, the music is shared, the sports is shared, the fashion is shared across the internet, and these values are actually getting popularity among the youth across different cultures. That leads to a global branding, and that leads to repositioning of local brands to appeal this larger market. For example, Levi's is actually taking a full part in this global change, and they are targeting the consumers all across the world, especially in Asia. It's getting popularity among the young people, and they're tech savvy, and it wants to be a trend setter in this particular change. With this, we have also witnessed that only the USA brands are not currently the leaders, because the brands all over the world, like Sony from Japan and Samsung from Korea, H&M from Sweden, Adidas from Germany is actually getting their space in whole this connected teens all over the world. As you can see in this ad does not target a particular culture or a particular country. It is for the global youth, because it may be accepted by the teens or the adolescents all over the world. As we started this chapter with the notion that companies want to grow and companies want to expand, they want to go global because they want to sell more and more of their products. So they are actually eyeing the global economies like India and China, who have seen rapid growth in the recent year, and people have now more disposable income. Their even middle class is able to purchase things. So due to this economic growth is not only limited to India and China, even countries like Indonesia and Malaysia are actually getting more popular among the global brands. And this is one of the reason that people or the marketers are actually targeting these countries in large numbers. And demographics are actually very much related to the cultural values, because as you can see, if as more and more people are entering into middle class, or their status is increasing, this demographic is changing, and even the way they are living, for example, they are moving from more collective societies to more individualist societies. Similarly, those societies which are more densely populated, they tend to have more collective orientation, because people are living together and they're relying upon each other. But as people are using more and more technology, they are actually shifting from collective to individual characteristics. So there are multiple things that are associated in demographics with the culture, and these cultures are actually related to as the people spending power as well. For example, rising fuel and food cost is one of an issue with multiple countries. But then important thing is, what is the purchasing power parity, or how much people are actually can afford the product. So what marketers does, or what companies are actually innovating in the manner that they may not be offering anything at the same price that they are offering in their own home countries, especially the Western countries, or in USD terms they may be offering some different products. Similarly, China is doing that. China is offering products for various demographics all across the world. What they are sending to USA is different from what they are sending to some other third world country who have less affordability as compared to. And within the China, you can also see some products. So PPP, or purchasing power parity, is based on the cost of standard market basket of products bought in each country. So that may not be same. Levi's may not be selling the same products as they are selling in USA. They may be selling some of their low end products in other countries. And you can see this income distribution across the countries is a very good way in which marketers can see the opportunity for different products all across the globe. So what people are spending, how many people are spending, what is the population segment, who have the most wealth, like who is owning the top 10% of the wealth in a country. This is a good picture of where they can spend their money. And then the lowest 20% is an important as well, that do they have the spending powers, where are they going to spend. And then the next chart, how different households allocate their income, is also a good picture of where the people are able to spend. For example, at USA, you can see people are spending 10% of their disposable income on food, and on housing and utilities they are spending 18%. And in others, like these others can be recreational activities, adventure and tour traveling and all that stuff, they are spending their money over here. In a country like Pakistan, you can see 45% of people are spending their food on their disposable income is less for that. But food is, once again, as you can see, is a growing segment. Even there's a very popular segment within Pakistan. And for education, they're spending 10%. Similarly, you can see in India, it's like 52% people are spending on food. That's a big amount. And in other countries, you can also get an idea that where to focus on and where there is a more attractive segment in that particular country. So as we have seen throughout this chapter, cross-cultural variation in factors such as the cultural values, such as demographics, they are actually important to understand to adapt the product services to local consideration. This term is often known as globalization, which is basically is a global localization which adapt products and services to local consideration. You may be able to have some uniform standards, or may be able to have your own particular a feel of the brand, but companies actually needs to differ with their cultural differences. An example of McDonald's offer different varieties of food all across the world. For example, they do not offer beef products in India, where beef is religiously not welcomed. Similarly, the pork or the bacon products are not offered in Muslim countries. Similarly, some spicy things are eaten in some countries, and some non-spicy things are eaten in some other countries. So companies need to understand how to localize their offerings as when it comes to culture. So here is a few questions that marketers may ask when they are considered to approach a foreign market. For instance, they need to understand is there homogeneity or heterogeneity in the culture within a country. Some countries are very homogeneous, and some countries like India are very diverse in nature, and they needs to have regional differences in offering as well. It can be based upon language, it can be based upon taste, it can be based upon people's values, and people's the non-verbal communications, and how they are they interacting with their environment, interacting with each other, and all these things. Another question that marketers may need to ask, that how this product that we are offering is actually fulfilling some need in the culture. For instance, motorcycles in many third world countries are primary form of transport, whereas in many developed countries, motorcycles or bicycles are even for the recreational purposes. Third question that can be asked, that is something that we are offering, do people need that product, or many people would be getting that product? Obviously company cannot survive if they are selling a small quantity of their product. They need to have a scale of economies of scale, and even if a country like China or India, where there are more than 1.4 billion consumers, not every product is required in that particular market. That is one of the reasons you would see that many iPhones are not offered all across the world at the same quantity as offered in many developed countries, where people are able to purchase their products. What values or patterns of values are relevant to the purchase and use of these products? You can see that if there are some product, for example, if a company or a food company is offering pig meat or bacon based products in some Muslim countries, so it obviously is not gonna work over there. It will be illegal to sell that product. So what are the distribution, political and legal structures for that product? That's also very important. For instance, there might be some tight regulations that does not allow that product, that even tight regulation that does not allow the advertisement of that particular product. So even for instance, how we can communicate about that product, they need to understand, whereas there are some countries who do not allow sex appeals in their products. Like China is very strict about that, like Muslim countries are very strict about that, and even they do not allow things like alcohol, so they cannot even communicate about those products. And what are the ethical implications of market this product in the country? So as companies consider their marketing mix for the communication, they also need to consider that if they are offering some products and they are advertising their product, for example some health based items, food items, so they need to have if that particular society and the regulations do allow to do that, or maybe it's considered unethical. Even the regulations are not against them, maybe people are considering it as unethical form of advertisement. It may be against their health, it may be against their environment. So these ethical implications of particular economy or particular culture is also for the consideration of the marketers.